Okay, so we're now recording the session. So thank you for stopping by. This is the first session for week 1, and welcome to Math 240. As I mentioned, we are going to be recording this session, so you will be able to see and follow the session at a later time. Say if you have to leave early, or for those of you who may not be joining in live. There will be audio, there will be video in a little bit. So I'm going to share my screen and then you'll be able to see my video. Okay. You'll be able to see my screen. I'm going to share my screen with you and then we'll go over some of the concepts for week 1. Okay. So, but before that, I just want to go over a few things with you. Okay. So just to kind of show you how the course works, what's due for week 1, and answer some of your questions and then we'll get started. Okay. So I'm going to now share my screen. Let me know if you can see my screen. So if you can just let me know if you can see my screen, that would be great. Okay, awesome. Great. If you think it's too small, if the fonts are too small, just let me know and I will zoom in. They are small. Okay, I will zoom in. Just give me a second here. Might look a little weird, but okay. All right, so let's go over some of the stuff here. So obviously when you access your course, this is the first screen you're going to see. Okay, you're going to see what we call the announcement section. And what you should do is you should you should be always checking the announcement section. The reason is that your instructors are going to be posting important announcements here. Okay, the very first announcement that I would like you all to follow in your courses is this Pearson MyLab registration. So how many of you have actually seen this announcement and have signed up for this for whatever your course is? I just want to mention that this course is a specific course for one instructor. So please don't sign up with this. Go into your own Blackboard um, Blackboard portal for your course and look for this course ID. So this is not your course necessarily. You have to access your own course in Blackboard and then look for this. Okay. All right. So how many of you have seen something that says Module 1 Math 2.4 or something like that, where it's an announcement for Module 1? Okay. So make sure you see, make sure you go into your courses and look for this announcement. It sort of introduces Module 1. It tells you what we're going to be doing during week 1. And it also sort of sometimes the instructors will summarize the assignments that are due later in the week. Okay. Great. Great, Jordan. The webinar on Thursday will be, well, let's save that question for a little bit and I will answer that. And I'll let you know exactly what we're going to be doing tonight and on Thursday. Okay. Okay. And then obviously you're going to have these announcements on webinar schedules. Okay. So this is going to tell you the dates for the webinar sessions. So when are these webinar sessions are going to be held? Now, I do want to warn you, the schedule will change a little bit. I have some traveling going on in weeks 2 and 3. So, and I will let you know, when I plan on having these sessions during the next few weeks. So I'll let you know at least, say maybe at least 4 to 5 days before um, the actual session. Okay. Okay. Yes, I'm the only one doing these sessions, so you'll have to bear with me during the entire term. Oh, the black box. So One thing that you're gonna have to remind me of is the black box, okay? Because I'm gonna do some real magic right now, and the box is gonna go away. See that? It just went away. So if you ever see this black box ever again, please do remind me, okay? Because I know exactly how to take it out. Okay, so is everyone okay with the announcement section? Great. Okay. The second thing you want to access is, and it's very important, is this link here called Learning Modules. Okay, so if I click on it, what it does is it opens up all the modules that are available in your course. So obviously this course is 8 weeks. Every week you have a module. So essentially that's like a set of chapters that you have to read and the assignments you have to submit. And so there are 8 sets. Okay. So this week we're covering module 1. It tells you exactly the dates this module runs. Okay. So this is from 24th to 30th. And this is what we're going to be doing this week. And then module 2 is next week and so on. So if I click on module 1, so this is going to show you all the learning objectives. Here we have really nice module 1 overview. There are some videos, journals. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And it tells you exactly what the assignments are for week 1. Okay. So there are one, and there are really 2 assignments. This 1-2 MyStatLab and StatCrunch orientation, you won't be graded on it. But I recommend that you do it because it will introduce you to MyStatLab, and I'll show you in a little bit, how that works. And because this is the place you're going to be submitting your assignments in. This week you have a discussion due, and I'm going to show you what that is, and an assignment due. And then we have extra credit, which is these general assignments. All the general assignments in this course are extra credit. They're extra 10 points, okay, each. The textbook, this is really up to you, Brian. If you think you like to have a hard textbook, then you can go ahead and buy it. But I will show you in MyStatLab, you also have access to an electronic copy, which I think you will prefer once you look at it. So I'll show you that. It's the same thing. They're both the same thing. So if you have access to MyStatLab, which you need for this course, you don't really need to buy the hard copy. Okay. Yes, Ashley, good question. So the journals don't have any due dates, so you can do this later. Okay. I recommend that you try to do it during the week because it covers the concepts that you're going to study during the week. So it's just easier to do it, then. But this is up to you. But all the assignments, MyStatLab assignments, have a due date. If they're not submitted by the due date, then there's a 10% penalty. Okay. 10% penalty on the problems that you have not solved by the due date. So you can still earn a maximum of 90% on these assignments, even if you are gonna submit them after the due date. Okay. The only hard deadline is on the discussions. So there is no late um, uh, submission for discussion. So you have to submit them by their due dates. Okay. Thanks, Heidi. I see that you're answering those repetitive questions. That's great. Thank you. If you know you're going to be busy, not available, is it possible to start the next week module early, or do you need to wait until Monday morning when it opens up? Well, you mean, I think what you mean is in MyStatLab. This is, reach out to your instructor, okay? This is a good question for your instructor. Um, they will make arrangements if if you tell them that you're going to be busy or you're going to be away, your instructor will definitely help you out there. Yeah, I'll go over those. So I'll go over the discussion now. Um, so let me go over the discussions. Yes, Leanne, you can use Excel, but I'll show you tonight, you may actually end up preferring StatCrunch over Excel. So you'll see why, because I think once I introduce you to it, you're gonna like it. Cheryl, thank you. Thanks for the feedback there. That's an excellent answer there. There you go. Heidi agrees with me. StatCrunch is easier. You'll see. Okay, so now if you click on the discussion board, this is the second most important um, link here. And during this week, what you have to do is there will be a discussion called, here is called welcome, but you'll also see something like getting started. That is a forum where you introduce yourself. So please make sure to post your introduction. Okay, just introduce yourself to your fellow students and instructor. It's a nice way to start the course. They'll come to know you, you'll come to know them. Respond to each other, get to know each other. Even though this is an online course, um, you know, you can do study sessions together online, right? So we have all these excellent tools these days, like Google Hangout, where you can, get together and study. Okay. But here's what's due this week. So the discussion forum for the discussion thread for this week that is due is this 1-1 discussion, applications of probability. So there are two components of this, okay? The first component is your initial post. So you have to read this problem statement, okay? You have to read this problem statement and then respond by posting your thread. So you have to start the week by posting your thread, okay? So in this example, you have to post something where you've used probability before. So there are tons of examples. In fact, the problem statement gives you an example as well, okay? So you have to post your own example. So once you click on it, you'll be able to see um, the discussions here and you can post them, okay? So you can post your own thread. Now, that is your initial thread. So now here's a very important deadline that you have to remember. All the initial posts, all your initial posts to the problem statements are due by Thursdays of the week. So by the end of Thursday, okay, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, or actually 11:59 p.m. your time zone, you have to post the initial thread. Okay, so the initial thread is due Thursday. And then after Thursday, you have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And during these 3 days, you are being asked to respond to other students' posts. And you have to respond to at least 2 other student posts, okay? So you have to provide your feedback, give your feedback, tell the student, what you think is good about their thread, tell, maybe give them feedback on how they can improve it, things like that. So there are 2 of them that are due, and you can post them for any time during the week, but they have to be submitted by the end of the week on Sunday. Okay. Okay. Do we have to attend every webinar? No, these are optional. So the webinars are optional. You don't have to attend it. This is just to help you out. Okay, understand the concepts and do problems. Thanks, Cheryl. I see that Cheryl and Heidi are really helping me out here. That's great. Jordan also. Yes, we're going to be discussing homework in a little bit. So for tutor, Jennifer, if you can please remember this question and ask me on Thursday. I will have more information on how you can get this help. Okay. I'm hearing that we're going to have a learning community during this term. So you're going to be able to get help outside. Okay. But after tonight's session, you may actually feel very comfortable coming to the webinar sessions, and that alone may be enough. So we'll go over that in a little bit. The webinar session, I generally keep them to be around, between 1 and 1.5 hours. Okay, so maybe tonight's session will be a little bit longer because, I'm sort of starting with the introduction, but they will, I try not to exceed 1.5 hours because 10:30, everyone's gotta go sleep, at least on the East Coast. Okay, so now that you have, so this is where you're going to be doing your discussions. Now let me show you where you're going to be doing your homework. So I'm sure by now all of you have accessed MyStatLab. And if you have not, please make sure to access MyStatLab. MyStatLab it's an online portal, okay, where you're going to be doing your homework assignments. And when you are in your course in MyStatLab, you will be able to see these options. And if you click on homework, you're going to be able to see your homework assignments. Okay. And so this week, you have to submit 1-3 MyStatLab Module 1 problem set. This is what's due this week. This is the graded assignment for the week. Okay. I know there's something called smart. Yes, smart thinking, but I'm also hearing something about a learning community. So I think I will have more information for you on Thursday. So I think you might like that a lot more. So just remind me on Thursday, okay? So this 1-2 MyStatLab and StatCrunch orientation, this is optional. You don't have to do it, but I recommend that you try to do it, okay? Because this is just a good introduction to how you're going to be submitting these assignments and how you can use StatCrunch and things like that. Okay. Jordan, thanks for that. Actually, I will follow that up as well, I guess. See, Kathleen says that the orientation was actually helpful. I absolutely agree. I think this is a good introduction, so try to do this. I think you will find some value in it. Okay, so any other questions? Otherwise, let's get started. We have about I would like to go over at least concepts for half of the problems tonight. You mean orientation? You should be able to click on this and follow the orientation, but yeah. But I don't think, I mean, let's get started. And I think, if you follow everything tonight, you may not even need to do this orientation. Don't forget, as I said again, this is not going to be graded. So it's really just for your own help. All right, so I see that there are fewer questions now. So let me get started with, there's one other thing I want to go over before I forget. So if going back to Blackboard, all these webinar sessions will be recorded, okay? And the recording will be made available to you so you can access it at any time, anywhere. So how are you going to access it? So if you go in Blackboard, you'll see in the option menu here, there's an option called webinar information. Okay, so do you see this here? If you click it and you scroll down, you will see a course calendar. Okay, so here's the course calendar. I would like you all to follow this calendar, okay, because this is where I'm going to be posting all the recordings. So for example, today is the 25th, and you must have seen this entry for the live webinar, right? So after tonight's session, I'm going to post the recording right underneath it. Okay, so just like this, do you see this here? On the 11th, which was the previous term, I hosted a webinar, and then the webinar recording was made available here. Okay, so yes, these are gonna, Katie, so this is gonna be exactly the recording of this session. So this session right now is being recorded, okay? And you're gonna be able to see exactly the same thing here. So you'll, after tonight, you'll see the link here, and you're gonna be able to follow it later. Now, another excellent resource as well as help, and with lots of hints is Professor David's website. Okay, so the link is here's the link. And when you go here, you're going to be able to see a website, that is specific to this course. Okay, this is an excellent resource here. Every week, you can access solutions to some of the problems. Um, lots and lots of help. How to use StatCrunch, how to use Excel, information on the concepts that we're going to be going over. Okay, so this is an excellent help here. And also on this website, there's a tab for webinars. So if you click on it, you're going to be able to see a table that has all the webinar recordings. Okay, so these are the webinar recordings from last term, 16 EW6. So here are all the recordings. There were 2 sessions every week. And you can see that week 1 webinar session is available here, right? So you can actually, someone had mentioned what if they want to work, ahead of the schedule. Well, that's perfect because you can access this Professor David's website here and say you want to start week 2 right now. Well, you can see that week 2 has the webinar link available here, right? So you can actually see week 2 webinar that was hosted in the previous term. So you can see those here. And this is the term prior to the previous term. So you have 2 sets of webinar sessions. So you already have these available, right? But obviously some students prefer coming to the live sessions, asking questions, which you're welcome to do. But again, you can work ahead of the schedule by following this, okay? All right, so I think I've covered pretty much everything. I've given you an introduction of the course, how you're gonna do things where and where. So unless there are any other questions, I'm gonna get started. So is everyone ready? Can I get started? We have about 99 students. So I don't know if all of you, if you can just imagine that you're in a real classroom in a college, right? And you're in one of those big halls, right? One of those theater-like halls, right? Imagine there are 100 students sitting there. That's what we have tonight, except that it's online. So I think that's just amazing that we're hosting such a big session, right? And you're able to interact, with me, with the teacher, and you're able to sort of see what I'm going to be doing tonight. So I think that's amazing. Uh, Okay, so what I did was I went into homework number 1, and let me know if you can see my screen clearly. If you want me to zoom in, I can zoom in further. I think this should be okay. It's good? Okay, good. All right, so here's question number 1. So the way I host these sessions is I go over the homework problems, and as I go over them, I will explain the concepts included in those homework assignments. And so you learn the concepts, and you learn the concepts this way, as well as if you have any questions, follow-up questions on the actual homework assignments, you can ask me those, right? So that's the way I do it. Um, and I generally go over each problem, and then as I go over it, I will sort of pause and ask for your feedback, ask for your questions if you have any questions on these, and I will also, as I said, as I go over these questions, I will also go over the concepts, and I will go over the concepts in a little bit of detail because I think statistics is best learned by practicing and then sort of being explained the concept. Generally, students, this is at least my opinion, is that students sometimes will get a little worried if the concept is explained before, sort of like a problem related to that concept. So that's my theory is let's solve a problem and let me explain the concept as I go over it. Okay, so we're going to do that. And I think what I would like to do is as I'm doing these problems, as I'm going over the concepts, I would like you all to keep notes on, any question that you have. So just note it down. And then when I'm done with the problem, then you can ask me those questions. Okay. That way it will be a much smoother experience instead of maybe the questions coming, as I'm solving the problem. Okay. So, but again, if you feel really, really, you think that the question is very important, you have to ask, well, go for it. Oh, okay, Kathleen, that's good to know. Yep. So what's going to happen is when you open the first question, okay, this is what it's going to look like. So let me just show you what all this is. First of all, you can see all the questions here by clicking this drop down. Click it, you see all the questions listed. Okay, I have these green check marks because I've already solved them, but as you solve each question and you get it right, you're going to see these green check marks. Okay, now the other important thing here is this tab here. If you click it, it says question help. You have all this help available, and I'm going to go over this slowly, but the most important thing here is, are these two. Help me solve this, view an example. If you click on help me solve this, what it does is that it actually gives you a similar problem to the actual problem that you have on the homework assignment, and it sort of helps you solve it. So it will ask, it'll tell you, hey, use the provided chart to determine percent that corresponds to the game owners. And then it will ask you, go ahead and enter it. And then as you entered it, it will give you feedback. And then it'll tell you, yep, it was right or it was wrong. And then you can just, it's kind of like saying it's giving you step-by-step guidance on how to solve the problem. Okay, so as it's showing you the steps, you're learning how to do the problem. So I think this is a very, very good option to use. Okay. Uh, Assuming on quizzes, these won't be. Yes, Ryan. So, well, really the quiz is the final exam, right? There is no midterm for the course. The final exam will not have these two options. Yes, you are correct, because the final exam is meant to test your understanding of the concepts. So that's a good question. But you will have access to StatCrunch, and we will see how important that. I think StatCrunch is probably the most helpful and the most important piece in all of this. So we'll go over that. Yes, Angie, I will go over that as well. I was just about to sort of go through this and then explain how that works. Okay, if you take a look at this, view an example, this is the second option. If I click on this, what I like about this is that it actually, instead of taking your feedback, it actually sort of solves the problem on its own. Okay, so you can keep hitting continue. It keeps giving you these step-by-step feedback, keeps telling you what's happening, how is it solving the problem, And this is, so there's no feedback required from you. So that's what I like about this. So if you really are unsure of a problem, you don't know how to solve a problem, and help me solve this is not really helping, you can access view an example. Okay. I think this is a very good option as well. I have to thank again, a lot of you are helping each other out by answering questions. Thank you. Thank you. And what else? Okay, and then here's the textbook. So if you click on textbook, the nice thing is that you have the electronic version of the textbook here. Isn't that nice? You don't need a hard textbook. But here's an even cooler thing. When you click on, say you're on problem one, okay, and you open the textbook, okay, from problem one, what it does is it actually opens the exact page that is relevant to that problem. Isn't that cool? It's kind of like saying you ask me, hey, I need help on problem number 13. I don't know how to do problem 13. And problem 13 involves something like standard deviation that you've never heard of before, right? It's almost like you are asking me, the professor, I need help with problem 13, and me telling you, okay, go to page number blah 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 in your textbook, and it explains how to do the problem there, or it tells you the concept there. It's just like that. It opens the page that is relevant to the problem. Okay, so and again, once the problem is open, take a look at these arrows. You can move forward, you can move backwards. Okay, so you can go to the next page. Okay, so that's the nice thing about this. Yes, yes, Alexandra. So obviously it's not gonna exactly go to the same word. Say for example, it's gonna take you to the section that is relevant to the problem. So yes, that's right. I see that Jose, you have raised your hand. Go ahead and just type the question in the chat box. Yes, of course. I think reading is important in the course. It will definitely help if you read, the concept before doing the problem. Okay, now then the next option is StatCrunch. We're going to go over that in a little bit, so I will save that for a few minutes. Okay. And then obviously, if none of this helps, okay, so there will be times when you'll be frustrated and you'll be like, well, none of this is helping me out. So what can I do? You can click on Ask My Instructor. And what this does is it automatically, okay, puts my email. So it's going to be your instructor, but in this case it's me. But the email will be sent to your instructor, and you can type your email and you can say, hello, I really, really, really need help with this problem. You can type whatever you want, okay? But obviously, this is a very poor way to ask help for a question. What you can include, specific thing that you need help with, okay? So you can say, hey, I can't do a certain step in one of the questions, so can you explain how to do that step? Okay, so something like that. Okay, so this is very nice. It sends an email. What happens is when you send it, the instructor receives this email. They will know exactly who you are. They'll get all this information, and they'll get your comment as well. Okay. Okay. So let's now start with the homework problems. I think this will make you feel much, much better. All right. So here's the first problem. Well, first of all, any questions before I go any further? Yes, Jennifer, we'll go over that in I will go over the journal on Thursday. Someone had asked me if the two sessions are the same. So they're not the same. Usually the first session I go over first half of the problems, and in the second session I go over the second half of the problem. Yes, you can do them in any order. And here's a nice thing. Here's another nice thing. So you can do problem 5 first and then come back to 1, any order you want. And here's another nice thing. Say you do one problem and you get one of them wrong. Okay, so you say you get, say you're solving this problem number 1, and you got part A correct, you got part B correct, and then say that part C, which is the last part, say you select a wrong option here, and it takes off points. Okay. Well, now you've lost points on part C, but you've got part A and B correct, right? So it's partially correct. Your answer to problem 1 is not fully correct, it's partially correct. What you can do is you can click this similar question, okay? What this does is it opens up a similar question to the one that you had, and it gives you another chance to get it completely right. And you have this option available throughout the term. Isn't that nice? Because essentially you can keep trying a problem. If you can get it right, you can, say if the first time you do it, you don't get it right, well, you can access one of these help options. And then once you know you understand it, you can come here, click on similar question. It will give you a new question to solve, and then you solve it and you get full credit for it. Okay. What does this mean? It means that you can essentially get 100% credit points in the homework assignments as long as you submit it by the due date. Okay. This is a huge help. I highly encourage you to click this button if you feel that you can solve the problem and you have, lost a few points on it for some reason. Okay. No multiple tries on the final exam. Well, let me rephrase that. There will be 2 attempts given to you in the final exam, and the higher score will count. How many times you can use similar questions? Unlimited. So you can use it unlimited times. It's actually a good question, Brandon. That's a very good question. The email is going to come to your SNU email address. That is something that I will encourage all of you to check. Okay, please make sure to check your SNU email every day. Okay. All right, let's solve this problem, and then it'll, I'm pretty sure it will make you feel better. So here's the following data represent the percent of owners of an electronic device that plan to purchase a replacement device within the next 12 months based on a survey of 1,100 adults in a certain country. That was a long sentence, wasn't it? Okay, so what's happening here? What's happening is we have a survey of 1,100 adults in a country. Okay, so can someone tell me, what do you think is a survey? What do you think a survey is? Okay, I'm getting answers like a series of questions, sampled section of the pop. I really like that answer, Kathleen. It's a section of the population that gets some questions. Yeah, so what I'm seeing here is a lot of you are saying questions or a section of the population and so on. Very good answers. Now, let me ask you one other question, and then I'll go forward with the question with this problem. Why do we do surveys? Why do you think we actually do surveys? Ryan, very good answer, Ryan. All of those answers are correct, but Ryan really nailed it. Okay. What Ryan said was because we want to know something about the population. And this is important. Yes, we are interested in collecting data, okay? But we can also collect data from the population. But there's a problem. The problem is sometimes the population is really, really, really large, okay? So something like this may happen. So this is what I call my whiteboard. So, so say you have a very large population, okay? So we can say that this population consists of um, all owners of Toyota cars in the US. Okay, so do you think this is a very large population or a very small population? All owners of Toyota cars. Okay, so the brand is Toyota here. Very large population, right? There are a lot of people who own Toyotas. There are all these different models, right? Toyota has very, many different, um, different kinds of cars. Um, yes, and some of us happen to own a Toyota, right? But you can see that this is a very large population. So what if I was to tell you, hey, go and say find out what is the average say income of owners of Toyota cars in the US. So you have to find the average income. If I was to say do this for the entire population, you'll be like, whoa, that's a very big population. It's going to require me a lot of money to go and ask every Toyota owner what their income is, right? So don't you think it's better if I take out a small sample or I do a survey, okay? This is a chunk of this data. I'm going to call this small n and I'm going to call this big N. Big N means the size of the population. How many owners are involved in this population? That's what N is. Small n is how many people have we selected in this survey or the sample, right? And you're probably hearing a lot about the samples, since it's the election season, right? This is the reason why we do surveys. So what we can do is we can get a random sample. It has to be random. And then I can say that this n is in the millions, okay, in millions. Well, then maybe what I can do is I can have a sample that is in, maybe thousands or hundreds. Okay. So do you all agree that um, a sample of size, say in thousands or hundreds, is much more manageable than a population that is in millions, right? Well, this is the reason why we do samples and surveys because it tells us something. Oh, by the way, once we have our research done, so say this is some research that we did and we found some averages or something, we can then go back and say, this sample gave me these findings for the research and I think they apply to the population. Okay. So a lot of times you'll hear, hey, a candidate is polling at 45% and that is based on a sample, but then it gets applied when researchers analyze this data, then they talk about the population. So you can say that, okay, this 45% applies to the population. Okay, like if this sample is a good representation of the population, then your research can be applied to the population. That's the whole idea. Very good, Sal. Good question. The bigger the sample size is, the more accurate your results are. Yes, that's correct. Although you have to do some sort of um, balancing here. A higher sample size also requires more resources, right? That's the reason why originally you couldn't study the population because it was too large, right? So there has to be a balance. You have to keep the sample size, to the smallest level that gives you enough confidence in your research. Okay. Yes, Kathleen, we'll talk about that slowly. We'll slowly get there. So that how we analyze what is needed. Yes. Okay. So now you all know what a survey is. Now you know why we do a survey here. So we have a survey of 1,100 adults, and here are the findings. So here are the findings of the survey. We came up with a chart where the x-axis is percentage and y-axis shows different electronic devices. Okay, and then these bars represent the percentage of the sample that is associated with the electronic device. So for example, in the 1100 sample, 18.7% were looking to replace their PCs. 7.9% were looking to replace their digital cameras. 12.2% were looking to replace their televisions. Okay, so that's what this graphic is telling you. Now here's the first question. What percent of game console owners plan to buy a replacement device? Okay, so looking at the graph, what do you think is the answer? We're looking at game console owners. What is the percentage? Patricia, this is, yeah, okay, you see it. This is the homework for week 1. Very good, everyone. 10.6. You can see it here clearly, right? So it's 10.6 for game console owners. Rosie, I'm not sure what information. Not sure if what the question is there. Ah, I see. Well, there's an icon here. You see this icon? It says click the icon to view bar chart of the data, right? So Cheryl, thank you for that answer. Yes, so you click it and it opens up this. Okay. Okay, very good. Now, if there are 250 million individuals who own a cell phone, so so my first question to you is, do you think this is a population or a sample here? If there are 250 million individuals who own a cell phone, is this a population of people who own cell phones or a sample of people who own cell phones? It's the population, right? Because they're talking about everyone. If there are 250 million individuals who own a cell phone, that has to be the population. How many expect to replace their phone within the next 12 months? So the question is, here's the question. There are 250 million cell phone owners, okay? So this is the total. Looking at the survey that we did originally, how many were looking to replace their cell phones here? So what percentage of the survey um, were individuals who were looking to replace their cell phones? 14.7, you can see here, cell phone, it says 14.7. So 14.7 were looking to replace the cell phone. So how can I calculate how many, small n, how many of the 250 million owners were looking to replace their cell phone? How can I calculate the number of individuals who were looking to replace their cell phones? Very good, Derek and Jordan. Yes, it's 250 million times 14.7%, so meaning divided by 100. And you can easily solve this using Windows Calculator. I love Windows Calculator. Okay, so I can type 250 million times 0.147, which is also 14.7%. Okay, so what do we get? 36,750,000. Wow. Okay. Any questions on this? Any questions on how I got to the answer? Why is the 12 months not a factor? Conray, I'm not sure what you mean there. Oh, I see what you mean. Because you have a survey done that says how many were looking to replace it within the next 12 months, right? Well, the population is going to roughly remain the same. Okay, so that's sort of like an assumption we're going to make. The population remains the same. So the question is, how many do you expect to replace their cell phones within the next 12 months, right? So actually, the point that you raised is already a part of the question. Yeah, they're just asking you how many within the next 12 months. They're not asking per month or anything. Make sense? Okay, great. Okay, let's do the last part. If the results of the survey were claimed to indicate that 7.9% of adults in this country, okay, 7.9, so they're reading, what they're doing is they're assessing the results of the survey and they're saying, if we claim that 7.9% of adults in the country who own the cameras plan to replace their cameras in the next 12 months, would you say that this statement is descriptive or inferential? So here's my question to you. What do you think is a descriptive statement? In other words, I'm going to say we have two types of stats or statistics: descriptive, inferential. Okay, and that's what the question is asking. So here's the problem statement again. So I'm going to give you maybe a few seconds to read the problem again, and then let's get into it. Okay, so Kathleen says inferential tries to take the results from the sample and apply them to the population. Excellent. Very, very good. What happens is we have two kinds of statistics, descriptive and inferential. Descriptive is the easier one to understand because what you do is you have a huge population, okay? So I'm going to again represent this by n. Remember I said you take a small chunk, represent this by small n, okay? And you calculate some stats or statistics, say. Okay, we just calculated some percentages in this question. And then what you can do is you can either just calculate the averages and whatever these stats, and they're going to be a part of the descriptive statistics. Okay, so whatever you study from the sample, okay, so if you calculate an average for the sample, then that's your descriptive stat. But when you take a statistic, like an average or a percentage, and you apply it to the population, okay, when you apply that to the population, then now this becomes inferential. Okay, So is everyone clear on that? Is everyone clear that inferential statistic is when you take the stats from your sample and you make claims about the population? And descriptive statistics is that you just take your stats from the sample and basically you just use them to describe what kind of sample statistics you're getting. Okay. So based on that, the claim here is that 7.9% of adults in the country who own digital cameras plan to replace their cameras in the next 12 months. So this is an inferential statement, right? Because what they did was they calculated the percentage using the sample, and now they're applying it to the entire population in the country. So this is inferential, okay? Because survey reports on a sample of country's population, okay? Okay, and then the question ends here. Okay, so any other questions here? Yes, Aaron, that is right. Election surveys are inferential because um, we try to take a representative sample from the population that represents the population very well. Then we calculate, the percentages for a candidate, for example. So we can say that candidate A is leading, say, by 5 percentage points. Well, what we're really saying is that in the population of likely voters, this candidate is leading by whatever percentage points. Okay. So because of that, yes, that is an inferential statistic. Okay, no questions here. So I'm going to go to question 2. Okay. Okay, here's question 2. So a library took a survey to find the age distribution of 50 randomly selected youth members. So what happened was there were 50 randomly selected youth members and their age group was found, and then they were put in the correct age group. So there were 6 members out of the 50 who were in the age group 3 to 5. 6 were in the age group 6 to 8. 9 were in 9 to 11. Okay, and so on. So the question is, how do we take this data and we create a relative frequency distribution? What do you think is a relative frequency distribution? Oh, first of all, what is frequency? What do you think is frequency? Yeah, well, in other words, frequency is just a number. It's just, how many. It's like counts, right? The amount of times. Yes, just count. It's a count. So in this case, this is a frequency distribution because it tells you exactly the count per group. That's a frequency distribution, right? Yeah, you count people and you put them in the appropriate box. And that's what the frequency distribution is. So you take this, which is a frequency distribution, and now you have to create a relative frequency distribution. What do you think adding this word relative does to this distribution? Very good, Kathleen. Yes, that is correct. It's like a percentage. It's just a percentage. What percent is 6 in this age group? What percent is this 6 in this age group? What percent is this 20 in this age group, right? That's what relative frequency is. How do you think I can calculate relative frequency from this frequency? Yeah. All I need to do, this is such an easy problem. All I need to do is take the 6 divided by 50. Take this 6 divided by 50. 9 divided by 50. Okay, 20 divided by 50, and so on. And that gives you the relative frequency. There are many ways to do it, but let me show you one of the ways to do it. So do you all see this, box here right next to the table? Do you see that? When I hover over it, it says click to copy table. I'm going to click it. What it does is it gives you the option to open this in these software packages. I'm going to open this in StatCrunch, okay? And I get this, and you can see StatCrunch kind of looks like Excel, right? So here are the groups, and here are their counts. So how do I get relative frequency counts? Well, here's one way to do it. So we click on data, okay? So click on data, and click on compute, and then click on the first option called expression, okay? So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to open this expression box. What I'm going to do is I'm going to type this whole header here, number of new members. So I'm going to say number of new members. You're going to type it exactly the way you see it here. I'm going to say divided by 50. And I'm going to give it a column label. And I'm going to say this is my relative frequency. And, oop, didn't like it. Let me see why. See if it takes this. Okay, yeah, it did take that. So let me tell you why I did not do it first. So you're gonna have to play with it a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is the reason it doesn't like the whole header in the expression is because it has spaces in there. So I'm just gonna take the header, edit it, and I'm just gonna take out this whole thing. I'm just gonna call it, say I'm gonna call it small n, okay, because it's a sample. So here we go. So now this column is called n, and it tells you the counts per group, right? Now I'm gonna go back to data, compute, expression. That's a good point, Peter. I should have tried that. I'm going to type small n now divided by 50. And I'm going to call it relative frequency. And when I hit compute, it calculates the relative frequency here. Okay, does that make sense? Did everyone follow how I did this? So this is a very good option, data, compute, expression. It will calculate all sorts of expressions, okay, that you want, but this is the way to get your relative frequency. All you have to do was take your count divided by 50. Each of these counts divided by 50, and you get this. Do it again. Okay, I'll do it again. Go to data, compute, expression. This will be available for the final. Isn't that nice? I'm going to say expression is n over 50 because n is the name of the header here. I'm going to call this relative frequency. Okay, and I click submit, and I get this. Okay. Tara, standard deviation is a little different, so I'll show you how to get that. Jennifer, good question. You would have to know. The question will always tell you the total number of individuals selected. Okay, so you're never going to get a question where you don't know the total. You can also count them here, by the way. Okay, so any questions on this? Otherwise, I'll move forward. Yes, we'll get to that. We'll get to the probability. Okay, the next piece is what percentage of new youth members are in the 9-11 age group? So what percentage are in 9-11 age group? Looking at this relative frequency table. 18, you can clearly see is 0.18, which is 18%, right? Yes, so relative frequency is shown in decimal points, and you can convert them to percentage by just multiplying them by 100. So like in this case, it will be 18.18 times 100 or 18%. Okay. Hopefully I'll be able to do 7 tonight. That's what my hope is. And if not, that's okay. We will finish the rest in the next session. Thanks, Heidi. Thank you again for helping me out here. Okay, so the next question is what percentage of new youth members are in age 12 or older? 12 or older. How do I get that percentage? 12 or older. Add the 2. Yep, add 12 to 14 and 15 to 17. 40% plus 18% is 58%. Excellent. Fantastic. Right? Because we wanted 12 or older, meaning it has to include these two groups, both the groups. It can't just be one group. It's 12 or older. So it has to include these two groups. And so therefore we have to add the two percentages here. So you get 40% plus 18%, you get 58%. Okay. By the way, I also have to remind you guys that your homework problems are going to be a little different than these. Okay. The problems will be the same almost, but the data will be different. So make sure to actually do these problems. Okay. Well, the data, I mean, the data that you'll get will be different, right? I mean, if the data was the same, then you could just take my answers and plug them in, right? So you're gonna get different data. So your answers will come out to be slightly different than these. Okay. Questions are pretty much the same, yes. Okay. So is everyone okay with this? Can I go to the next problem? Okay, great. No, you just add, right? So you just add the two percentages. So this is the age group 12 to 14 is 40%. Age group 15 to 17 is 18%. You just add the two percentages. You get 58%, right? Just add these two, 0.4 plus 0.18, 58, which is 0.58 or 58%. No problem. Cheryl is absolutely right. I can't stress enough on that. You should definitely start early, do it slowly through the week instead of saving everything for the last minute. Okay, next problem. Okay, this is where the fun starts. So the data to the right represents the number of people from a certain county aged 5 to 64. So here's a data table just like the one you just saw, right? It's exactly the same. You have age groups and you have counts. So this is the frequency table. We need the relative frequency table. So what do you think I'm going to do? How do you think I'm going to solve this problem? First of all, what's the first step? What is the very first step to do this problem? StatCrunch. I'm going to use StatCrunch. But how do I open the data in StatCrunch? Hit the icon. Lisa got it right. I'm going to hit this icon. See that? And open in StatCrunch. Now I'm going to show you a cool way of doing it. Okay. The first is obviously what you just saw. I'm going to click on data, compute an expression. And well, this time it didn't give you the total count. So I would have to know what the total is, right? So if I use the data, compute, and expression option, I don't know what the total count is yet. I have to add all these to get the total, right? But what about another option? I'm going to use a second option in this case. Instead, I'm going to go to graph. Okay. And under graph, I'm going to go to bar plot. And for bar plot, I'm going to plot with summary because I have summarized data, right? I don't have the actual data. I have counted data, right? I have count data. So I'm going to go to summary. And here's a nice, cool little thing here. Okay. This is really nice. If you can all follow it, you're going to love this thing. Click on categories in variable. Okay. The categories are your age. That's your age groups. And your counts are in the patient column. So I'm going to choose patient. All right. And have a look at this. Have a look at this type. I don't want frequency. I want relative frequency. Okay. I want relative frequency. I'm going to order everything by the worksheet, just the way they show up in the worksheet. I'm going to keep that order. Okay. And that is it, except I'm going to also click on this display option. I'm going to check mark value, show me the value of above the bar. All right. I'm going to have all this and I'm going to hit compute and take a look at what we get. So tell me that this is cool, because what we have just done is not only it has calculated the relative frequencies here. Okay. You see these on the top of the bars? These are your relative frequencies. Okay. How cool is that? You got your relative frequencies, and not only you got your relative frequencies, but you also got your bar chart, right? You have your bar chart there. You can visualize how the data looks like, right? And so what do? Very simple. You take your answer, you take all these answers, these 4 answers, and you plug them in here. See that? Just plug them in here, and those are your right answers, right? Those are your answers to the problem. These are all your relative frequencies. And then what is the next problem? Take a look at the next problem. The next problem says create a frequency histogram. Okay, this is a frequency histogram. It is not a relative frequency histogram. So I'm going to go back here. Okay, and I'm going to click on this options tab and click on edit and go and now pick, instead of type relative frequency, just pick frequency. Okay, so just pick frequency and hit compute. And this is your, it looks just like your relative frequency. The bars look the same, except you can see now it's actually showing you counts instead of the relative frequency counts. But this is the right answer, and you can match it now. You can match it with the right graph. You can see that this is not correct. This is not correct. It can be either this or this, but you can match the counts. Look at part A. A has a count of about 7,000. If you look at the output, you can see that this has a count of 7,000. So this has to be the right answer. Okay. All right. So Jennifer, that's a good question, except I do want to, that this actually raises a very good point, which is that although you can calculate some of these statistics yourself, okay, at least for this week, you can do it by hand. But pretty soon, in fact, in this module, perhaps on Thursday, we're going to be doing some problems where it will not be easy to do hand calculations. In fact, I will also say it will be impossible to do hand calculations, because these calculations are going to get very, very complicated. And part of this course is to learn how to use software packages, because that is also what is used in the industry. Okay. When you go and you work in the field of statistics, which is very different than some of these other traditional math courses, you are expected to know how to use software packages. Okay. The reason for that is because the calculations are too cumbersome to do by hand. If we, for example, there will be a problem in this homework assignment, which if we do by hand, we're going to spend probably about half hour finishing just that one problem. And it is very important to learn how to use a software package to do it for you. Okay. Okay. So this was the right answer. Okay. Okay. Now the next problem says create a relative frequency histogram. So what am I going to do? So I'm going to go to this again. I'm going to click on options, click on edit, and instead of the frequency, I'm going to choose relative frequency. Okay. So I'm going to go back to relative frequency and just hit compute. And I get my relative frequency with my relative frequencies on the top of the bars. See that? Now, this is what it looks like. The graph looks exactly like the frequency distribution. And again, you can see there's an increasing pattern, right? There's an increasing pattern. Well, take a look at this. There is an increasing pattern in either B or D. Okay, so these two are wrong. A and C are wrong. The correct answers are B or D. And you can see that B is the correct answer because the relative frequency for the last group is 0.387. It's almost 0.4. Well, this can't be right because you can see that the last bar here goes up to only 0.28 something. So this has to be the right answer. Okay. Does that make sense? Fantastic. So now looking at the relative frequency, what percentage of patients are between 35 and 49? So looking at this, what percentage are between 35 and 49? Very good. 29%. That is correct. 29% is the right answer. What percentage are 34 or younger? 34 or younger. Not 53. It's 34 or younger. So I'm getting a little bit different answers, but I think 23 is probably correct. So you can see that, well, not 23. So you can see that 34 or younger are these two groups. Do you all agree with that? It's these two bars. So what am I going to do is I'm going to add these two frequencies. 22.5, 0.225 plus 0.098. So what I'm going to do is 0.225 plus 0.098. And I get 0.323, which is 32.3%. 32.3%. Okay. And that's my answer to that problem. 32.3%. Any questions here? Simple, right? Okay. Here's another simple problem, I think. So here what we have is we have a data that represents the percentage of recent high school graduates. Okay, so the x-axis show you. So actually, let's click on. You see this? Click the icon to view the table. So I'm going to click on this. Let's take a look at this. So what we have is we have years given, and then we have the percentage enrollment in high school. Okay, and you can see that over the years, the percentage is increasing, right? You can kind of see that it's been increasing. The general trend is that it's increasing. But in statistics, I like to say that it's much easier to visualize things than to actually kind of read some data. It's much, much easier if you were able to visualize it. Statistics is almost, I would say, 40%, art. How good of an artist are you? How can you imagine things, in your mind? That is very important. So I'm going to take this data that is very raw and very much like, doesn't make lots of sense possibly. I'm going to open this in StatCrunch. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw it out. I'm going to draw a graph that's actually going to give you a visual of this data. So let's take a look at it. I'm going to go to graph. Okay, I'm going to go to the graph option. And I'm going to go and let's do scatter plot. Okay, so I'm going to go to scatter plot. Okay, so let's click on scatter plot. And it opens up all these options. I don't need to edit all of them. I just need a few of them that I need to edit. So the first one is X. For X, I'm going to choose year because year is the X-axis variable. For Y, I'm going to choose the percentage enrollment. Okay. And I'm going to scroll down, and for display, I want lines. I don't want the actual points. I want a connected line so that we can sort of see the trend. Okay. And then I'm going to hit compute and take a look at this. So isn't it nice? Isn't this much better to visualize this graph that you just got instead of looking at this data? So wouldn't you say that the graph actually tells a really nice story than just by looking at the data, right? And this is what stats is about. It's about explaining things the most efficient way. And in this case, the efficient way is a scatter plot. So this answers the question somebody asked, how do we know that we're going to use a scatter plot? Well, the first hint is that you can see that your answers are given as scatter plot, right? These are just points, and then there's a line connecting the points. That's a scatter plot. That's the first sort of clue into what you're going to use. But this is an art that you're going to learn over, over time. If you practice, you're going to learn, hey, I have this data. I want to visualize it. I want to see the trend. The question says that the enrollment is going up, right? The enrollment in colleges are going up. Well, that can be shown in a scatter plot. That's why I use the scatter plot. Okay. So I get this scatter plot, and you can easily match it with this graph. This is not correct, and this shows a falling trend. That's not correct. So this has to be the correct answer. Okay. Comment on any trends. Well, it's very easy. The percentage of high school graduates who enrolled in college has generally increased, right? Generally, it's been increasing. Though there have been some down years. So there were some down years, right? You can see that this came down, right? But the general trend is that it's increasing. Okay. Any questions here? I think we can do one more problem and then we'll end the session tonight. No problems. Very good. No, any question? Okay. One more problem and then we'll call it a night. Okay. This is an interesting problem. So for a large sporting event, the broadcasters sold 60 ad slots for a total revenue of $151 million. What is the mean price per ad slot? So what is a mean? Can someone tell me what a mean is? So what is a mean? Yes, it's just an average. So I'm going to ask you a question. Say if I had, okay, say I have this data. Let me ask you a question. Where do you think the mean will be? Just by visualizing it. I don't want you to calculate or do any calculate. Just where do you think the mean is going to fall here? Yeah, very good. Almost everyone knows. The mean is going to turn out to be somewhere in the middle. Somewhere here, maybe, right? Because there are roughly about the same number of observations in each direction, right? So it's going to fall here. Let me give you a trickier situation now. What if you have lots and lots of data points on one end? So where's the mean going to be now? Left skewed? Heidi, think about it again. Right skewed. It's going to move this way. It's going to move in this direction. So maybe like somewhere here. Excellent. So this actually, the reason I asked this question is because I think this is going to help you solve some problems on Thursday, because the next problems involve, um, skewness. But what is this telling you? This is telling you that the mean or the average is very much dependent on the distribution, okay? The distribution of data. If the distribution is concentrated in one direction, the mean is going to move that way. If it's concentrated on the other direction, the mean is going to move that way. So the mean is sort of like, dependent on the shape of the distribution, okay? Do you think that's bad or good? It can be good, but it's also bad, right? Because the mean is supposed to show the middle, right? It's something it it has to sort of explain the middle of the data distribution. But if it's dependent on where the data is located, right, that's not good. We really want the middle somehow, right? So what we're going to do on Thursday is I'm going to tell you another statistic, which is not the mean, okay? It's another statistic that is resistant to this change, okay? It doesn't change much. So I will, well, there you go. Angie just, she told the secret right there. The secret is the median. We'll talk about that. But in this case, no problem, Angie. I was just kidding. So in this case, what is the average? So I'm going to take the $151 million, which is the total revenue, and I'm going to divide it by 60. There are 60 ads, right? So I'm going to choose. Whoa, what happened here? Apparently it doesn't like my, there we go. So I'm going to choose, there are 100 and the revenue is 151 million. Total ads is 60. So what is revenue per ad? Well, it's just simply 151 divided by 60, or 2.5 million. So $2.5 million per ad. Okay, so the network is doing pretty good. That's what the answer is to this problem. Okay, is everyone okay with this problem? Did everyone see the concept behind the mean moving in either direction? So on Thursday, I'm going to show you a real example of this, along with how a median is resistant to this change. Okay. So that is it for tonight's session. So we'll end it here. Thanks for staying for an hour and a half. And then we'll finish the rest of the problems and the concepts on Thursday. Sure. So let me just stop the recording and then I'll stay for maybe 5-10 minutes, answer your questions. Patricia, that's excellent. Yes, so there's a attendance survey. It's optional. You don't have to fill it, but it does help us if you fill it out. So please fill it out if you have a chance. It's right above the chat box. So when you know where you see the chat box, it's the box right above it. Second link is student survey link. Brenda, so I mean, I would say that has to do a little bit with practice. So if you know, just just make sure to like practice these problems as we go along, and then you're just gonna get like by week 2, you're gonna be so good with StatCrunch, you're not even gonna think twice. Homework in my stat lab can be completed ahead of time. Well, yeah, I mean, if I think right now you're gonna see 2 homework assignments. They should be visible, assignment 1 and 2. So you can do them. Yes, that's you know, you can go at your own speed. If you want to solve more assignments ahead of time, just contact your instructor, see what the instructor says. Yes, Heather, I am going over the question, so just type it. This session is being recorded, yes. Um, Brenda, I'm gonna post it, and you're gonna be able to see it if you go in your course. In your course in Blackboard, there's an option called Webinar Information. If you click it, you're gonna see a course calendar, okay? And this recording will be posted in that course calendar under today's date. Professor David's website is, here's the website. Yeah, Patricia, so if you lose points on any of the questions, you can just click on, as I showed in the webinar session, you can click on a similar problem link that's at the bottom of the question. If you get part of the question wrong, you can click on that and it'll give you a new problem to solve. And then if you solve it correctly, you get 100% credit points. Obviously, it has to be within the due date. After the due date, the maximum you can get is 90%. Okay, that's still not bad. Conrad, I will say that StatCrunch, you'll learn, you know, with practice. So the more you learn, the more you do it, the better you'll get at StatCrunch. And obviously, I'll be here to sort of show you how to use it. We don't get any points or anything for attending, correct? Yes, that's correct. It's absolutely optional. You don't have to attend it. You can just view the recording later. Heather, so what I did was, okay, let me just give me a second here. I'll open up the question again. So Peter, no, the final exam you'll only be given 1 attempt each problem. But the final exam itself has 2 attempts. So you can do it once and then you can redo it one more time and then the higher score will count.